In this video, we're talking about the relationship between the slopes of parallel lines and the slopes of perpendicular lines. And the first part of it should just make sense. If you consider, you don't have to sketch this, if you consider two parallel lines in the coordinate plane, we've talked about slope in the previous lesson, it should make sense that these two parallel lines would have equal slopes. The second bullet is there just as kind of a disclaimer, since vertical lines technically don't have slope. That's why we just say two vertical lines will be parallel to each other. Non-vertical lines, their relationship is not quite as intuitive. What is true about perpendicular lines is that their slopes are opposite reciprocals. And what that means, opposite means if it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. Opposite means change the sign. When you take the reciprocal of a fraction, remember that means that you're flipping it upside down. So, again, a disclaimer, because vertical lines have no slope, you can't take its slope and change the sign and flip it. But of course, visually, we know that a horizontal line is going to be perpendicular to a vertical line. In problem 1, we are trying to identify whether the lines are parallel, and they sure look parallel. But I would hope that you'd realize if one slope is just a decimal off from being equal to the other slope, they're going to look parallel, but they technically won't be. So you do want to make sure that you are using the slope formula, or in this instance, some of you may be more comfortable counting the rise, counting the run, but you do need to find the two slopes. In the interest of clarity, I'm going to call this line A and this line B. So the slope of A would be found by doing 3 minus negative 5 over 1 minus negative 3, giving me 8 over 4. So the slope of line A is 2. Slope of B, same idea. Y's over x's gives me 4 minus negative 2 over 5 minus 2, giving me 6 over 3, which also reduces to 2. Which makes me think of something, so let me pause just one moment. Sometimes I end up with students, eyes up please so you see what I'm referring to. I end up with students that stop here and say, well, they're not parallel because they're not the same thing. Take that extra step and reduce your fractions. Okay, so the question was, are the lines shown in the graph parallel? It's a yes or no question. What say you? Yes. As far as an explanation goes, what kind of explanation do you think would be adequate? One person, please. How would I explain that to them? Their slopes are the same. Okay, so where we're being asked if these lines are perpendicular. What we know about perpendicular lines is that their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So let's find the slopes. Take a moment and do so within your groups. Okay, by now you should have found the slopes of the two lines. Are the lines perpendicular? We sound like we're split. These are the slopes that I found. Did you find the slopes to be the same? Okay. Are they opposite reciprocals of each other? No, what could be the slope of D, or if these lines were to be perpendicular, what should have been the slope of line D, let's say? No. If the slope of line C stays at -3, then what would be the slope of line D in order for those lines to be parallel? Grace? Not 3/1, yes. Positive 1/3. Remember, two words. Opposite reciprocals. They need to be opposite signs and flip-flopped of each other. That -3, ladies and gentlemen, for the slope of C, Abby, you with me? That slope of line C is -3/1. If I flip that upside down, it becomes -1/3. If I change its sign, it becomes positive 1/3. So the lines are not perpendicular. Slopes are not opposite reciprocals. Pause a moment for your turn on the screen. All right, in problem 2, we're being asked for an equation of a line in slope-intercept form, and I want my line to be parallel to their line and passing through that point. First of all, as I said, you can't write an equation of a line without knowing the slope. So, what will be the slope of the line that we write? The slope of the equation of the line that we write will be 4. Now the problem is asking us for the slope-intercept form of the equation. I know the slope, but I don't know the intercept. Anyone have a way for us to fix this problem? Perhaps you remember how to write an equation of a line with this. Yes, ma'am?
You can do -2 equals 4 times -2 plus b.
Okay, so what Zoe is saying is let's start with y equals mx plus b and realize that this point is an x and a y. I know what the m is. I can plug all those values in, and the only variable I'll have left will be b. You can solve for that and then use it to finally write your equation. Here's what I mean. As she said, take the -2, plug it in for y. Take the 4, plug it in for m. Take the other -2, plug it in for x. I have nothing to plug in for b, so I just write down plus b. Well, now I just have an equation in one variable. Easy to solve. Let's simplify it, though. -2 equals -8 plus b. And when I solve this equation by adding 8 to both sides, b equals 6. So now I know what my m is. I know what my b is. Very easy to write the equation in slope-intercept form now. It's y equals 4x plus 6. Once again, the thing I want to stress most is you can't write the equation of a line without knowing its slope. What would be the slope of our equation? What would be the slope of our equation, Grace? Grace? -1/3, yes. Before I go any further, do we understand why it's negative? Do we understand why it's 1/3? Do we understand? No. Okay, let's backtrack. Step 1. Identify the slope of the given line. What is the slope of the given line?
3.
Given line has a slope of 3. Step 2. Flip it and change the sign. When you do that, what do you get? That 3, again remember, that's 3/1. When I flip it, it becomes 1/3. When I change its sign, it becomes -1/3. So, identify our slope. It's negative 1/3. Okay, so if that negative 1/3 didn't just fall from your lips with ease, those steps that I jotted down might be helpful to you as you're studying, so that you remember, so that it gets reinforced to you that you need to take that slope, flip it, and change the sign. Sir? The slope of our line will be negative 1/3. Okay, so once again, I have the slope. This 6, 2, like Zoe mentioned before, is an x, y. And we can do the exact same thing that we did in problem 2. Take the x, the y, and the m, plug them into y equals mx plus b. So we can then solve for the b. Our equation would become 2 equals negative 1/3 times 6 plus b. Simplifying this equation, I have negative 2 plus b equals 2. And when I solve for b by adding 2 to both sides, b is 4. And now I know what my b is. I know what my m is. I can write the equation as instructed in slope-intercept form. So y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. Pause for the your turn. Okay, on the screen, you see the steps